Every history book you read, every documentary you watched in school, contains a foundation built on simple, undeniable lies. We've been fed comfortable stories, neat timelines, and heroic myths designed not to educate you, but to control the narrative. But what if the official story is completely fake? Today, the unseen ledger is giving you the red pill of history. We're exposing 10 massive historical lies that are still taught in classrooms today. Secrets like the famous queen who never said the quote she died for. The war that was started by a simple, intentional lie that plunged the world into conflict. And the final, biggest lie that is so deeply ingrained in our culture, exposing it will change how you view your entire past. Institutional deception isn't a modern conspiracy. It's the oldest tool of power. If you're ready to learn the truth your teachers covered up, stay with us. Number 10. The myth of the Viking helmets. Picture a Viking warrior, bearded, brutal, and wearing a terrifying helmet with two sharp, curved horns sticking out the sides. This image is everywhere, in cartoons, movies, and historical textbooks. Here is the massive historical lie. Vikings never wore horn helmets. Not a single archaeological find, not one ancient depiction, shows Vikings wearing anything remotely resembling those ridiculous horns into battle. They wore simple, conical iron caps or leather headgear. So where did the lie come from? It was invented in the 19th century by a Swedish costume designer named Carl Emil Doppler for an 1876 production of Richard Wagner's opera, Der Ring, the Nibelungen. Doppler wanted the villains to look visually distinct and instantly menacing, so he added the horns as a dramatic flourish. The image was so powerful and so easily recognized that it was immediately adopted by illustrators, cementing a fake historical fact in the minds of millions for over a century. The truth is, the image we hold of the fierce Viking warrior is nothing more than costume design for a German opera, a stylish lie that continues to dominate popular culture and mislead history students across the globe. Number 9. The truth about Marie Antoinette's cake quote. It's the most famous and most cruel quote in French history. As the starving masses cried out for bread during the Revolution, Marie Antoinette, the Queen of France, allegedly sneered, "Let them eat cake." This supposed callousness cemented her image as the ultimate heartless tyrant, justifying the rage that eventually led to her execution. Here is the historical lie. Marie Antoinette never said it. The quote actually predates her by nearly 100 years and was found in the writings of philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who attributed the phrase to an unnamed princess. By the time the French Revolution began, the quote was already part of the political folklore, used to highlight the aristocracy's profound disconnect from the poor. Revolutionaries, seeking a villainous face for their rage, simply attached the famous, damning line to the foreign-born, extravagant queen. The lie was simple, effective, and politically devastating. Marie Antoinette was certainly tone-deaf and lived a life of luxury, but the defining quote that sealed her fate was a journalistic attack, not historical fact. The simplicity of the lie made it durable, and it remains the first and most effective piece of historical propaganda taught to every student studying the French Revolution. Number 8. The myth of Isaac Newton's apple. The story is cinematic and perfect. Isaac Newton, sitting under an apple tree, watches a piece of fruit fall, and in that single moment, the entire concept of universal gravity is born. It's the moment of genius, the spark of inspiration that changed physics forever. This story, however, is a massive historical lie in its execution. The moment was not a sudden, clean realization sparked by a single falling apple. Newton himself invented and embellished the anecdote years after the fact. He used the story to convey the idea of an inspiration, simplifying decades of complex mathematical and theoretical work into a single, romantic image. Newton was already deep into his studies of orbits and motion when the apple allegedly fell. The falling fruit wasn't the source of the concept, but a metaphorical illustration used to explain the concept to others, particularly biographers who wanted a clean, dramatic narrative. The secret here is that history prefers simple, neat narratives over complex scientific reality. The powerful image of the apple tree sold the book, and generations of students have been taught that the greatest scientific discovery was an accident rather than the result of years of excruciating, dedicated calculation. Number 7, the misconception of the first Thanksgiving. The Thanksgiving story we learn in school is a warm tale of unity. The Pilgrims, grateful for a good harvest, invited their Native American friends, the Wampanoag tribe, to share a peaceful inaugural feast. The two groups sat down, shared turkey, and founded a beautiful tradition of brotherhood. This story is a massive historical lie of omission. The Feast of 1621 did happen, but it was primarily a political and military alliance, not a friendly gathering. The Pilgrims didn't invite the Wampanoag. The Wampanoag arrived after hearing gunshots and suspected a battle was taking place. Furthermore, the modern idea of Thanksgiving, centered on unity, deliberately ignores the horrific future of genocide, broken treaties, and disease that followed shortly after. The truth is, the initial gathering was a small, 3-day harvest festival common in England, which included deer and local fowl, but absolutely no turkey as the centerpiece. The current narrative, established in the 19th century, was designed to create a soothing, unifying national myth, erasing the inconvenient truth of colonial oppression and conflict. The lie is the purpose we assign to the event, creating a false foundation for the American historical narrative. Number 6, Christopher Columbus discovering America. He is the hero of the textbooks, the brave explorer who sailed the ocean blue and discovered America in 1492. Many national holidays and monuments celebrate this great moment of discovery. Here is the massive historical lie. Christopher Columbus discovered absolutely nothing. Firstly, the millions of indigenous people already living on the continent were not lost. They knew exactly where they were. Secondly, Columbus was certainly not the first European to arrive. Viking explorer Leif Erikson landed in North America roughly 500 years earlier. Columbus was simply the first European explorer to arrive after the invention of the printing press and the rise of powerful, centralized European empires interested in global expansion. The narrative of discovery was manufactured by the conquering powers to justify their brutal invasion, colonization, and enslavement of the native populations. The lie serves to elevate a man who was, in historical reality, a brutal governor and slave trader, effectively erasing the complex history that existed before he stepped on the beach. This lie, centered on a single man's false heroism, is the foundation of a colonial narrative that has warped history for centuries. Number 5, the lone inventor. Edison versus Tesla. We are taught that Thomas Edison was the singular genius who invented the light bulb and brought electricity to the masses. He is the heroic, lone inventor who solved the problem of darkness. This is a massive historical lie built on aggressive self-promotion and corporate maneuvering. The truth is that the light bulb had dozens of precursors, and Edison's genius was primarily in marketing and patent control. The bigger lie concerns his rival, Nikola Tesla. While Edison promoted direct current, DC, which was inefficient and dangerous over long distances, Tesla championed alternating current, AC, the system that actually powers the modern world. Edison spent millions trying to discredit Tesla, even resorting to public stunts where he electrocuted animals to prove AC was deadly. Edison's corporate power and effective propaganda pushed the simple, heroic lone inventor narrative, while the true genius, Tesla, was often sidelined. His more transformative inventions like free wireless energy buried or dismissed, all to protect the corporate control of energy infrastructure. The lie is the simplified hero narrative that ignores the complex, sometimes criminal, reality of technological history. Number 4, the cause of the Great Fire of London. In 1666, the Great Fire of London famously destroyed huge parts of the city. The official story is that the fire started by accident in a small baker's shop on Pudding Lane. It was a tragic, random event. Here is the historical lie. The fire was likely not a random accident, and the political and religious cover-up that followed was immediate and systematic. At the time, tensions were running incredibly high between Protestants and Catholics. Authorities seized on a simple, comforting narrative, the accidental baker, to avoid admitting the possibility of organized sabotage, which would have instantly plunged the city into a bloody civil war. Furthermore, the true cause was likely exacerbated by the city's profound lack of preparedness and the slow, disorganized response of the authorities, factors they were eager to suppress. The lie of the accidental baker was the most politically expedient option, designed to maintain fragile social order at the expense of historical accuracy. The simplicity of a narrative ensured its survival, protecting the reputations of the government officials who failed to contain the disaster. You've learned that individual heroes and tragedies were often manufactured, but the final three secrets expose lies so pervasive they rewrite entire periods of history. These are the cover-ups that define the modern world. Number 3, the Great Boston Tea Party disguise. The iconic image of the Boston Tea Party is one of patriotic heroes, dressed as Native Americans, bravely defying British tyranny by dumping tea into the harbor. The story is presented as a spontaneous, popular uprising fueled by frustration over taxation without representation. Here is the massive historical lie. The protest was neither spontaneous nor purely about taxes. It was primarily an act of corporate protectionism and economic conspiracy. The smugglers, wealthy merchants who were making a fortune illegally trading tea, organized the protest because the British East India Company was selling tea cheaply, directly threatening the smugglers' black market profits. Furthermore, the costumes were not worn for disguise. They were worn to shift the blame to the native population and evade identification, lending a romantic, wild element to what was essentially a highly organized economic crime. The American revolutionaries quickly adopted the event, reframing the property crime into a patriotic myth of liberty, erasing the complex financial motives of the rich merchants involved. The lie creates a clean, moral origin story for the revolution, concealing the messy financial truths at its heart. Number 2, the reason for the Spanish-American War. In 1898, the U.S. battleship USS Maine exploded mysteriously in Havana Harbor, killing hundreds of sailors. The rallying cry was immediate. Remember the Maine? To hell with Spain. The official story was that a Spanish mine destroyed the ship, forcing the U.S. into a justified war to protect democracy. This is a terrifying, massive historical lie. Modern analysis overwhelmingly concludes that the explosion was not caused by a Spanish mine, but by an accidental ignition of highly unstable coal dust stored right next to the ship's powder magazine. The explosion was an internal accident. However, the powerful American Yellow Press, led by figures like William Randolph Hearst, seized on the opportunity. They ran sensational, unsubstantiated headlines blaming Spain, whipping up massive public support for a war the U.S. government was already eager to fight for territorial expansion: Cuba, Puerto Rico, the Philippines. The government and the press intentionally suppressed the evidence of an accident, using the tragedy as a perfect pretext for military action. The lie of the Spanish mine directly caused a war of aggression, proving how easily the media and government can manipulate a nation into deadly conflict. Number 1, the final lie. The Dark Ages were not dark. Our final, most pervasive lie is the concept of the Dark Ages, the period of 1,000 years following the collapse of the Roman Empire. We are taught this was a time of total intellectual collapse, scientific stagnation, and cultural backwardness. This is a foundational historical lie designed to serve a political purpose. The term Dark Ages was coined by later Renaissance scholars who wanted to glorify their own time by falsely depicting the preceding era as primitive and empty. The reality? This period saw enormous advancements in global culture, science, and trade, especially in the Islamic world, the Golden Age, and Asia. Furthermore, in Europe, Monasteries preserved vast knowledge. Agricultural technology advanced rapidly, and beautiful art and architecture thrived. The motivation for the lie was to create a sharp contrast, a darkness against which the light of the Renaissance and modern era could shine. This final lie warps our entire understanding of history, creating a false gap in human progress and burying 1,000 years of vital, sophisticated cultural evolution simply to serve the ego of later generations. Ultra. From invented quotes to wars started by simple accidents, these 10 historical lies prove that the power of the narrative is stronger than the power of the fact. The truth is out there, but you have to be willing to look past the textbook. If these secrets of history shocked you, hit the subscribe button now. Which of these historical lies were you most surprised to learn was false?